We did it, gang. An entire decade of death metal.
I'm tired, boss.
Today we are ranking 35 death metal albums from 1999, and we're starting with In Flames with Colony. Now, I think that this is In Flames taking all the best elements of their early sound to their absolute pinnacle. Embody the Invisible is an incredible way to kick things off with some of their best riffs to date. Colony is a major head bobber, Zombie Inc. is sick, and Behind Space 99 is also a ripper. All of those soaring melodies just surround you. Named in Metal Hammer's top 20 best metal albums of 1999, it is going to perfection. Then we have Hellchild with Bareskin. The third album from this Japanese band that was overlooked on the 93 and 97 videos. I'll have to go back and check those out, but unfortunately this is another lower one on this list with frequently annoying vocals. Shame, since the guitar work can be pretty interesting, mixing groove, tech, and melodic elements at times not dissimilar to Carcass. This one's going to okay tier. Then we have Deeds of Flesh with Path of the Weakening. This sick California brutal death metal band back with album 3 and keeping a steady forward momentum. Solid production, more punchy breakneck speed in the drumming from Joey Heaslett, and some seriously techy riffs on par with Dying Fetus. Another consistent banger, start to finish. It's going to fantastic. Then we have Malignancy with Intrauterine Cannibalism. This New York brutal death metal band's album has grown on me a bit since my last listen, and as far as the more brutal stuff on this list goes, I would say it's one of the higher ones. Killer drumming going on and great mix of chaotic technicality and infectious grooves from the guitar. That said, I'm still just not generally a big fan of this vocal style, but I do really love the 2019 re-recording, but this one's going to good tier. Then we have Aborted with The Purity of Perversion. The Belgian band coming in heavy right from the start with their debut with the horror movie samples and song titles. Love the carcassy riffs and the Hellraiser-themed lament configuration in particular. Not a ton of their own identity yet, with Sven mostly breeing his way through this thing, but just pure brutal death metal and a lot of kind of gore grind too. Seriously inspired by the likes of Cannibal Corpse and Dying Fetus. Not bad at all, especially within the scope of 1999. Not one of my top picks either from them or in this year though, so it's going to great tier. Then we have Burn the Priest with Burn the Priest. The debut album from Lamb of God under their original name, and unlike the groove metal they would become known for from this point forwards, this one is much more steeped in death and grind. Bloodletting is disgusting, Dimera kills and it's fun to imitate the vocals, Suffering Bastard is amazing, Lame is fucking brutal. The songwriting isn't super memorable, but it's still damn fun. I have a great time with this, it's going to amazing. Then we have Vomitory with Redemption. Album 2 from these Swedes, mixing the sound of their region with the grimier parts of the Florida scene, I would say. Definitely a step up from the debut with raging riffs and truly relentless drumming. Serious props to Tobias stealing the spotlight on the kit. Not as in love with Jussie's vocals, though this would be his last album with Eric taking over afterwards. Consistent, if a bit samey, it is going to kill it. Y'all, of course, we have many more albums to go, but if you're enjoying the video so far, be sure to hit the like button to help me out, and also comment as we go along. Where do you agree? Where do we disagree? Let's get a conversation going. This is just my opinion. Also, save the playlist, because I've got all of these now. This is the last one of the 90s. We've got year 90 to 99 at this point. And if you'd like to see more, like maybe I'll move into the 2000s. I'm probably going to go back and do the 80s albums as well, but it depends on how these videos do, which is up to you. But next up, we have Amon Amarth with The Avenger. Now this takes everything that I already loved about the debut and just steps it up. Very fast, just balls to the wall, blazing Viking hellfire. Bleed for the Ancient Gods is a great album opener, and then that crazy vocal intro to Metal Wrath just gets me amped every time. Lots of really infectious tremolo melodies, easily my favorite of their early work, and actually in my top 3 of their entire discography, so this has to go to perfection. Then we have Immolation with Failures for Gods. This album definitely steps up the atmosphere from the previous efforts, fitting to the album cover. I think I enjoy this one a little bit more just thanks to its kind of blizzard-like sound that surrounds you. As far as the songwriting goes though, I'm still not blown away by it. There's definitely some skull-bashing moments of technicality with the likes of Failures for Gods and Stench of High Heaven, and some cool soloing too with just an awesome sound to them. I'm gonna put this one at great tier. Then we have Necrophobic with the third Antichrist. Always glad to hear more from this Stockholm black and death metal band's early years, frequently topping these lists, and now with album number 3. Love the atmospheric synth opening going into the rebellious D-beat of the third of Arrivals. Once more emphasis on just very evil and menacing tone above all else. It's going to amazing. Then we have Dark Tranquillity with Projector. Definitely one of the albums in their discography with a bit of a bad reputation, and kind of understandably so. It's a big shift to more gothic influences, but that said, I have a soft spot for it, and it's not without some standouts in Free Card, Undue Control, Exposure, and especially Therein, which was a real treat to see them play live a few years back and just belt out in the chorus with the crowd, as I said in my Dark Tranquillity tier list. So this is going to fantastic. Then we have Eternal Suffering with Drowning in Tragedy.
Here's some loud music, which just sounds like it's saying, I'm angry. I'm very, very angry.
The only full-length album from this Massachusetts brutal death metal band. Love the intro with the Mr. Rogers sample. Definitely gave me a chuckle before relentlessly banging my head. Super gnarly vocals with not only the usual gurgly lows, but some seriously larynx-shredding highs too. Great guitar work with both crazy fast stuff and some slower earworm hooks. This is going to killer. Then we have Armored Angel with Angel of the Sixth Order. Another one-and-done album from this Australian band that started in speed and thrash before progressing to this more melodic sound. Personally, I find it to be a little bit sleepy. It's kind of like Amon Amarth took a lot of Xanax, is the way I look at it. Far from terrible, but I feel like I want to nod off listening to it, so it's just going to okay. Then we have Centurion with Choronzonic Chaos Gods. The debut album from this Netherlands band with their satanic and occult themes drawing comparisons to Deicide. Overall, some pretty basic blueprint following death metal, mixing a few melodic elements with its overall old-school aggressive sound. Riffs and drumming can also venture into more technical territory at times. It's a strong listen, but not very remarkable here, I would say, so it's going to good tier. Then we have Behemoth with Satanica. This is one of the earliest albums that I heard from the band, and I still enjoy going back to it semi-frequently. To me, this is where Behemoth truly become Behemoth, with a much more death metal style and production. It's still raw, but just feels like the classic death metal albums from that time and fully shifting away from the black metal stuff. It can get a little messy and inconsistent at times, but there are some really great tracks to find, like Lamb, Ceremony of Shiva, Decade of Therion being my personal favorites. This one, in 99, it's going to perfection. Then we have Ackercock with Rape of the Bastard Nazarene. The debut album from another legendary UK band, bringing a pretty unique mix of eerie and unsettling atmosphere with classic OSDM tropes, some mild comparisons to Septic Flesh in both the gloomy, doomy atmosphere and occasional semi-operatic female vocals, but I'd say that this is much more aggressive and at times even delves into noise elements. Really stellar, further tension-building drumming too from David Gray. It is going to amazing. Then we have Cattle Decapitation with Human Jerky. The debut album from this legendary death grind crew, and depending on where you look, it's listed as either an EP or an LP, but apparently the band counts it, and I got enough grief in my Cattle Decapitation tier list that I figured I should include it. 18 tracks, scraping through just 16 minutes, with more emphasis on the grindcore elements here than they would have on future releases. I'm putting it at great tier. Then we have 6 Feet Under with Maximum Violence. Album 3 from Chris Barnes and Company, and I remember seeing this album art a lot as a kid just getting into metal. Definitely sounding a bit heavier in keeping with the title. Chris in particular seems like he's really going for the throat with these belted, syncopated screams on the opening track and closer hacked to pieces, making for standout performances, but unfortunately that intensity doesn't carry all the way through. Likewise, really solid menacing atmosphere with some of these riffs courtesy of newcomer Steve Swanson, making things more interesting than just pure groove, but then cornier tracks like War Machine bring it back down, so this landed at good. Then we have Arch Enemy with Burning Bridges. Vast improvement over the last two albums in my opinion. The Immortal is a great opener. Dead Inside has a little Megadeth going on, complete with ripping solos. Guitar work in general finally gets to really shine here with tons of great riffs, and the vocals continue to be questionable in places, but they work much better here, making it my favorite of the Johan era, with this being his final album. It's going to fantastic. Then we have Angel Corpse with The Inexorable. The third album from this US black and death metal band, once more leaning heavily into the black metal elements with these fiery tremolo guitars and blast beats. Definitely a solid gateway release from one genre to the other, I would say. Tracks can start to run together a bit, but there are great moments like further into Solar Wills. This is going to kill her. Then we have Mortician with Chainsaw Dismemberment. This album perfectly sums up my line when it comes to brutal death metal vocals. Like, I can handle the breeze and gurgles, but they are so grumbly and also just buried in the mix here that it just sounds like a bear snoring. I feel like I'm being gaslit. This feels like a meme's idea of what death metal is. Also add some very obviously programmed drums, and I just don't really understand the love for this one. I don't even hate programmed drums, but here they don't even feel like they match the grime of the rest of the music, so... hate me if you want to. Again, let me know down in the comments if you love this album and why, but for me, it went to okay.
Mike, you're doing it wrong. I can understand what you're saying.
Then we have Children of Bodom with Hatebreeder. The Finnish legends carrying over everything that was already great about the debut for their sophomore album with killer riffs, synth on point once again. Warheart is a fantastic opener, love that little bass solo on top of everything else. The title track has those great heavy metal hooks, love those big pounding drums on Wrath Within. Children of Bodom is just brimming with riffage, and I love the little gang vocal moments too. Still some issues with the yarlier vocals, which are particularly bad I would say on No Commands, but once again, you know, unprecedented on this list, and overall I really enjoyed it. Again, not one of my favorite Children of Bodom albums overall, but again, for 99, like, crazy stuff. It's going to perfection. Then we have Devourment with Molesting the Decapitated. The debut album from this Texas brutal death metal band, another gurgle fest, which I feel like was becoming more of a trend at this point with slam on the rise. Lots of dodgeball snare drums too and swampy grooves. And credit for the weird croak that Ruben is capable of when it starts to like vibrate in his throat. It's really unsettling. Genuinely, again, someone in the comments help me understand what you see in this style overall, because it all just runs together to me. To be fair, I hear some other people say that about early black metal, but I feel like for all the bad production those albums have, they at least sound different, but maybe that's just me. So this is going to great tier. Then we have Avulsed with Stab Wound Orgasm. Album 2 from this brutal death metal band out of Spain. Love the overall speed, riffing, and production, but the vocals get downright silly for me at times on this one. And silly is better than annoying, but I'm still giggling more than banging my head, I would say. So this one is going to good tier. Then we have Hate Eternal with Conquering the Throne. The debut album from this popular Florida band fronted by the talented Eric Rutan and with guitars from Suffocation's Doug Cerrito. More great, just classic era sounding death metal in the same vein as Cannibal Corpse, with some great earworm riffs on the likes of By His Own Decree. Tight and consistent over its lean 33 minutes, but I do think it could have a little bit more variety and personality in the songwriting overall, so this one went to killer. Then we have Opeth with Still Life. Probably the hottest take on this channel over the years is that even as a big fan of this band, I tend to rank this album lower in their discography despite it frequently being cited as a fan favorite.
What do you mean,
But let me also say once more that even the quote-unquote worst Opeth albums are still miles better than pretty much anything in the competition, and the opening track, The More, is an absolute masterpiece. I also enjoy Godhead's Lament, but after that, things start to trail off for me quite a bit until Serenity Painted Death and White Cluster. Like, there are plenty of great moments in the middle, but I just don't find myself as consistently engaged as with My Arms, Your Hearse, which I think is the superior album. So for that reason, I think it still stands out on this list and deserves to be high, but it didn't hit perfection for me. So again, I'm interested to hear people's thoughts on that. It's going to fantastic. Then we have Septic Flesh with Revolution DNA. Always fun to have an excuse to fanboy over this Greek band year after year, and things only get more impressive after this album, I would say. The clean vocal elements still aren't quite where they need to be, but once more the atmosphere is among the best on this list, and Spyros' death vocals only getting more expressive. Not my favorite from them either, but easily a high pick again on this list. Honestly, if they cut like 15 minutes out of it, I think it would be even stronger. But as it stands, it's going to amazing. Then we have two albums from Disgorge, starting with Cranial Impalement. The California brutal death metal band's debut album with tracks originally recorded in 95 and 96. More Gurgle City stuff, but at least this feels better produced than that Mortician album. It still makes me laugh at times though between the vocals and the odd mixing of the bass. It's only 24 minutes, which is a plus, but still going to okay tier. And then also this year, Disgorge dropped She Lay Gutted. This is the more current recording, but I can scarcely tell the difference save for a touch more vocal variety and maybe some slight improvements to the production and mix. Still pretty boring to me personally. It's like the sonic equivalent of watching those Transformer movies where they are just so visually exhausting that my brain kind of shuts off. So this one's also going at okay tier.
It's not my thing. It's not my thing.
Then we have Iniquity with 5 Across the Eyes. Album 2 from this Denmark tech death band. Solid listen with strong production, and the faster parts in particular are pretty wicked, but also a number of slower stretches that just leave me waiting for the next transition. But this did a little bit better than Disgorged, at least. It's going to good tier. Then we have Monstrosity with In Dark Purity. This Florida band's first album without Corpse Grinder on vocals after his departure to join Cannibal Corpse, with Jason Avery of Eulogy stepping in, and I would say that this feels like a slight step down from the previous two, but it's not due to the vocals. Like, Jason was a solid replacement. I just don't find the songwriting to be quite as gripping and memorable, but it's still a standout for the year overall, I would say. It's going to amazing and pretty high at that. Then we have Hypocrisy with Hypocrisy. Right from the top, it's clear that these Swedes are going for something more grandiose with the synth elements on this 6th album. I had to double check that I didn't actually push play on Septic Flesh in this case. But then going into Apocalyptic Hybrid, it's also clear that they've stepped up the faster parts as well, with a song that would have been right at home on Slaughter of the Soul. Fusion Program Minds also has plenty of In Flames DNA. Unfortunately, after that, there's an increased emphasis on some pretty weak, clean vocals that drag my enjoyment down. Like, it starts off really strong, and then it kind of like peters off after that. Still good though. It's going to Killer. Then we have Adramelich with Pure Blood Doom. The second album from this Finnish death metal crew that previously landed high in 1996. I don't think this one is quite as strong as the debut, but it's got some pretty head bob inducing grooves and flies by at a 37 minutes that feels much shorter than that. The vocals are probably the weakest part, but are serviceable. The Book of the Black Earth is a standout for me. This is going to great tier. Then we have Cannibal Corpse with Bloodthirst. Hearing another significant step up in production on this one as far as the songwriting goes, pretty dynamic with a lot of different things going on. Love those malignant lurching grooves and carcassy vibes on opener Unleashing the Bloodthirsty and Sickening Metamorphosis. Killer bass opener to Coffin Feeder, Ecstasy and Decay has some really cool ups and downs. Fun flavor riffs on Hacksaw Decapitation too. And again, a really strong, tight 34-minute runtime, really keeping things sharp and focused. Still not one of my favorite albums from the band, but a strong and consistent listen nonetheless. It is going to fantastic. And then we have Necrophagist with Onset of Putrefaction. The debut from this killer German technical death metal band that helped to set the stage for everything from the Faceless to Beneath the Massacre in the 2000s. Recorded almost entirely by guitarist and vocalist Mohammed, and with some additional help, and man is it a wild ride and about as technical as they come with tracks like Intestinal Incubation and Culinary Hyperversity. Also love that bass on Fermented Offal Discharge. And most importantly, I'm always impressed with a band that can balance that level of showmanship and technicality with engaging songwriting so that it doesn't become style over substance. So of course, this had to go to Perfection. Y'all check out this playlist for every year of the 90s ranked, and if these videos do well enough, maybe I'll continue on to the 2000s. You can also check out this video for something else. But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.